Coordination is an orderly management of individual and group efforts to provide the unity of action in pursuit of a common goal. The organizational efforts in terms of joining hands together, in terms of understanding the situation, in terms of getting the work done is very, very important. At the end of the day, coordination is not just about joining hands together, but it is also at a micro level trying to understand the do's and don'ts. Good morning and welcome to the first session in Unit 5 in Management of Principles and Practices, where we are going to talk about a very important topic called as coordination. Now, the word coordination is something that is inbuilt in every organization in this world. So can there be a system, an organization, or a process where there is no coordination? Absolutely not. Why? Because coordination is not about a single person. It is not about a leader. It is not about a team, but it is about the collection of people put together. It's a collection of teams all together. So that's where I like to use this word organization as a whole. So this is where the team comes together, the entire organization comes together because they believe that each and every activity that is designed, that is planned, has to go in a sequence. It has to go in an order. So that's where we see the entire coordination happening. Now, in management function, this ensures the unity of action. The other keyword which I would like to use today, unity of action. Now, we all are bound by certain actions. We love. Why? Because if you are a marketing manager, you are a finance manager, you are a HR manager, you are bound to take some actions as per your designation, as per your role, as per the task that has been provided to you. But at the end of the day, when we talk about this word called as unity of action, there needs to have a common purpose that has to come in your mind. So that's where I'm going to talk about this unity of action. Why? Because that spells harmony inside the organization. You might be divided by departments, but you are united in action. That's where coordination comes into picture. So it's very, very important for all of us that we understand each and every activity, we combine each and every activity, we make it big and we carry it forward. Followed by, in other words, coordination is an orderly management of individual and group efforts to provide the unity of action in pursuit of a common goal. Now, let me just bring in this factor, the common goal, very, very clearly. In a group like Tata, for example, when you talk about an organization which has about 20 plus odd companies under their control, to be precise, about 29 odd groups when they have under their Tata corporate brand altogether, you can see that each and every organization will have their own vision and mission. Now, the vision of TCS and the vision of Tata Consumer versus the vision of Tata Capital might not be same. But then these people work in tandem according to the entire corporate policy that has been set by the Tata Sons. At the end of the day, what is very important is that we seek unity in diversity. That's where coordination becomes a very, very important path or a technique rather to be understood. You might be bound by the different roles of the organization, your vision, your thought process. The purpose of you getting selected into an organization is entirely different. But at the end of the day, what the organization wants is that they want you to think alike. They want you to think on the same lines of the company. So that's where coordination makes you understand why we need to join hands with the various departments that are available so that the end result is achieved. Now, you might be in purchase department, for example, somebody else is in finance department, somebody else might be in marketing department. When you start looking at a micro level into the organization, sometimes it is really worrying, or sometimes it might be surprising enough to see that I don't know even the names of the people who are working with me. I do not even know where they come from, what diverse background, what educational qualifications do they hold. But at the end of the day, we only know that this department has to be contacted, has to be put in front so that they are able to do it, they are able to take it forward altogether. So this is entirely a very, very important function that we are talking about today. The production department produces the good, for example, marketing department procures the orders, and when you talk about the finance department, they finance, they help in the acquisition of the capital. Now, with all this common factors, with all these roles that are being played inside the organization, coordination still remains the key for success. With this, I would also like to say this factor: the pursuit that organization always follows in terms of achieving a particular target or a goal is more about making the people understand certain do's and don'ts. Now, when you look into coordination, that's exactly what we want people to understand. At the end of the day, coordination is not just about joining hands together, but it is also at a micro level trying to understand the do's and don'ts. Why? Because we want people to follow the rules exactly. We don't want people to have an equivalent set of rules for themselves. We want people to follow word, letter, and spirit of the integrity that has been written down so that at the end of the day, you know what you are doing. And that's what coordination means to you. Followed by, all these departments must function in an integrated manner so that organizational goal can be duly achieved. The word integrated manner. Now that is very, very important for all of us to understand here. Integration is more about not just the mathematical functional here, but it is more about understanding each other with the strength and weakness that you have. For certain organization, finance might be the key asset under which they are playing. For certain organization, it is the marketing department which will be more pronounced. For certain department, it is the HR, which is the core-centric activity altogether. But that doesn't mean that you can go forward and ignore the other department. That doesn't mean that you can just take it forward in terms of just ignoring any other activity. You need to integrate. You need to find the common strength. You need to find those areas, the path where you can just combine your strengths, where you can understand that the organization objective is more important than your personal objective. What I mean by here is that the minimum conflict word, let me just come on to that word very, very clearly. At the end of the day, conflict is not we want cooperation. We don't want to see that the departments are fighting against each other to prove who is better than the other. We don't want a scenario where people go and talk about their personal objectives better than the organizational objectives. We don't want to have a department which tries to dominate the entire organization. We want a system where each and every organizational department tries to understand each other. They try to go forward, support in spite of weakness, in spite of the lacuna that they have, and get on to a common vision so that the goals are achieved. Moving further, now the significance of coordination, very, very important. Why? Because it mainly arises from the fact that work performed by the different units, they're all as an integral part, and with the harmonized efforts and achievement of goals, the department is able to achieve the success. If you just look into this diagram, you would be able to see a web of various strings that are strung together, which is going to tell a story to you. This is typically a kind of a jigsaw puzzle. This is typically a kind of a spider web, which gets connected at different parts, at different points altogether. What you see in this is that every department will try to create a harmony, will try to sync into the organization goal. That's what we see at the end of the day. We see that people try to come closer to the organizational objectives. They try to see that the work that they have performed is matching the goals of the organization, and they are able to give a better or an enhanced result altogether. And one of the most important thing is that the timing factor. Now that is very, very important. Why? Because many people think that you can do the work at your time, at your leisure. But the organization always sets a deadline. So coordination becomes challenging. Why? Because the deadline factor has to be included. When you have to complete a task within the given time frame, and also you need to adjust and work with other departments, then probably coordination is a very, very challenging task altogether. So that's where we say that sometimes the organizational efforts in terms of joining hands together, in terms of understanding the situation, in terms of getting the work done is very, very important. So we try to put things together. We try to build a setup here. We try to build an entire harmony, entire system altogether so that the work is done in a proper manner. Followed by, where there is a growth in size and volume of work, we will definitely require more people, no doubt about it. So there is a greater responsibility of people who are working across multiple purposes unit. Not only that, what's very, very important that you need to see is that there is a lot of importance that goes in terms of supervision and communication. Hence, the coordinating of activity is definitely a large concern that becomes a major task for the managers. Now, this coordination factor is easier when you are talking about people who are countable by your fingers. When you have a 5 or 10 people, then probably you don't even have to learn about the word called as coordination because you know them one-on-one basis. But when you're talking about an organization which has got about 10,000 or even about 1 lakh people working across different units or departments, coordination probably becomes a Herculean task. Now that's where you need to understand, for a manager, for a leader, trying to connect across people, trying to get them on the same line, on the same string becomes difficult. At that point of time, you are more in a difficult position trying to make people understand the common purpose. You are more in a challenging position to make people understand how the organizational goal has to sink into your mind, into your work, so that at the end of the day, we are able to produce the results. So definitely, the significance of coordination lies in connecting people, connecting the thoughts, and connecting towards the common goal, which at the end of the day is definitely going to be counted. Followed by, large organizations generally tend to have activities located at different places, which may not permit frequent and close interaction. Now, this is quite important because as you expand your organizations across the borders, across the geographies, the biggest challenge for you is that you never get a chance to interact with people who are on the other side of the world. Now, your time zone, their working conditions, culture, the office hours, so many factors comes into picture, and many times you feel that, yes, let them do their work, we will do our work. But at the end of the day, what happens is that when you want to see your organization as one family, trying to work towards a common goal purpose, you need to see that this coordination becomes a more serious activity and you are able to connect with people at any given point of time. So I would always say that this is very, very important here, and you need to connect with the people at any given cost, at any given point of time. So this becomes a major responsibility for the managers to sink in and start doing the work as far as possible. Now, the growth in size of organization is often combined with the diversification of business activity. That is primarily because of the new unrelated products that are added to the existing products. So whenever I'm going to talk about organizations coming into picture, now for example, let's take the Piramal Group. Piramal Group, which is led by Mr. Ajay Piramal, which was once a leader in the healthcare business. Today, they have stepped it into home financing. That is basically the DHFL group altogether. After the acquisition, you will be able to see that the group has added entirely a new segment of business into it. In fact, Piramal Group has gone into the levels of also developing or construction of real estate also. Now, what is happening here is that for Piramal Group, apart from healthcare, every other business is a new group which is getting added to the existing group. Now, all the more, the challenge is that how are you going to put these organizations or these units into place? How is the sync going to happen? How are you going to make the entire organization come together as a single unit? How there is going to be the complexity made simpler? And how are you going to convince the various managers, the divisional heads, in such a way that the coordination takes place in a smooth manner? So at some point of time, when organizations try to make acquisitions, try to expand their entire set of activity, it has to be very, very clear on the factor that yes, they are able to coordinate and they are able to come up in the best manner as far as possible. So it's a very big challenge that you would see here when organization starts breaking into divisions and subdivisions, which has to be coordinated, which has to be brought to the best level as far as possible. With this, I come to the end of today's session, where I believe that all the resources that I have shared with you in terms of coordination would be of great use to you, both in terms of practical as well as in theory. In the upcoming sessions, we will be talking about another important function known as controlling. But until then, I want you to stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.